When my mother-in-law showed up unannounced telling me I was overreacting and calling 2 years of infidelity boy talk, something inside me finally snapped. I screamed, knowing the neighbors could hear, about how she raised a man who thinks emotional abuse is acceptable. She left, but her haunting words echoed, "You're going to regret this when Nora grows up without her father." I was positioned in my entry passage on Thursday evening at precisely 6:47 p.m., clutching this rich chocolate ganache confection which had required a dedication of 3 hours of my time to produce after concluding my workday. From the adjoining living room I could distinctly perceive Maxwell and his companions completely unleashing their inhibitions. It was a sound of loud, inebriated merriment. I had departed from my workplace prematurely, collected our young daughter Nora from her childcare facility, dropped her off at my parents' residence, secured all the necessary festive provisions from Target, and exerted myself immensely to arrive home before him, aiming to organize his impromptu 30th birthday celebration. However, he had, regrettably, returned before me. Upon entering, I found 5 fully grown men stretched across our segmented sofa, surrounded by numerous beer containers, observing some spectacle on our television that prompted them to giggle raucously, like hyenas. The spectacle, it turned out, was our wedding recording from 3 years prior. I was immobilized in the entrance, still holding the cake. Then Anthony directed attention to the screen, exclaiming, "Observe, observe, here it comes." And Maxwell responded, "Oh my word, watch this bit." I then saw myself on the screen in my bridal gown, engaging in a conversation with my aunt close to the dessert station. The recording device shifted focus, and there was Maxwell situated near the bar with Lisa, my closest female companion since high school. Lisa, my chief bridesmaid Lisa. Even within the video playback it was discernible that he leaned in and bestowed a kiss upon her. A genuine embrace. Not merely a brief contact. His hand was placed on her waist and everything. I had never witnessed this occurrence at my own wedding because I was occupied tending to 200 other attendees. Yet, there it was on the recording in unmistakable clarity. Maxwell then addressed his acquaintances. "Recall when I snuck a kiss with Lisa during the celebratory reception? She was utterly incapable of resisting my advances that particular night." His associate Simon was perishing with laughter, adding, "Your wife had no inkling whatsoever. She was far too occupied with the guests." Maxwell merely shrugged nonchalantly and articulated, "She's so gullible." I remained stationary, the cake still secured in my hands, the ornamental supplies still waiting in my vehicle, my mobile device resting in my rear pocket. I carefully extracted it and began capturing a recording, because what in the world was unfolding at that exact moment? Maxwell then took an additional swallow of his beverage and declared, "I've been clandestinely meeting up with her for 2 years now." His male friends were slapping him 5. Anthony remarked, "2 years, mate, that's seriously remarkable." And Maxwell confessed, "To be frank, the only reason I remain is because her father covers our home loan installments, and she practically manages every chore around the dwelling like a domestic servant anyway, so why would I consider leaving?" They all tapped their bottles together. They cheerfully clinked them as if this merited a celebration. I managed to capture a solid 2-minute segment of this exchange before my hand began to tremble excessively. They proceeded to compare and rank Lisa against me, discussing how Lisa possesses a more entertaining nature and avoids harping on issues like tidying the storage area or limiting expenditure. How I am, fundamentally, a resident household superintendent who occasionally shares his sleeping quarters. Maxwell utilized those precise words, resident household superintendent. I retreated silently from the hallway, deposited the cake on the kitchen counter, exited the residence, and remained seated in my vehicle in my own driveway for approximately 20 minutes, merely regulating my breathing, because I needed to prevent myself from re-entering and committing a serious offense. My father has been settling our mortgage for 2 years, ever since Maxwell's fledgling business venture collapsed, and he was unable to secure employment for 8 months. My father, who issues the payment every single month because Maxwell vowed he was in the process of recovering financially and simply required time. My father, who holds the belief that Maxwell is a commendable spouse because Maxwell performs the role so convincingly during familial gatherings. I have been employed full-time, executing every responsibility within the home, tending to Nora, who recently turned 4. Coordinating all the meals, managing all the unseen domestic labor, and apparently also serving as the butt of jokes among his despicable friends while he engages in relations with my best friend. 2 years. 2 years he has been rendezvousing with Lisa. I performed the necessary calculations while seated in the car. This implies it commenced when I was with child. When I was suffering from severe, persistent morning sickness and was unable to retain sustenance for many months, and Maxwell would claim he was attending the fitness center or meeting his acquaintance Francis for beverages. When I was so unwell I couldn't leave the couch, and he would arrive home at 10 p.m. smelling of fragrance. And I actually accepted his explanation when he asserted that Francis's partner applied excessive perfume, which transferred to him when she embraced him in farewell. I contacted my sister Alicia from the car. I neglected to even offer a greeting. I simply commenced expressing my outrage and she inquired, "Pardon?" And I informed her, "Yes, so I have just discovered that Maxwell has been involved in an infidelity with Lisa for 2 years by walking in on him watching our wedding video with his friends and boasting about it." Alicia declared. I am coming over this very instant. And I replied, no, because he remains unaware that I know and I need to strategize a solution to this. She persuaded me to transmit the video recording to her initially. A sensible move. I sent it to her mobile device and then forwarded it to myself from 3 distinct telephone numbers, just to be absolutely certain I possessed contingency copies everywhere. Subsequently, I returned inside. They were still absorbed in the wedding video. Now they had reached the segment where Maxwell and I were performing our inaugural dance, and Simon commented, "Mate, you're quite literally twirling your wife while contemplating her best friend," and Maxwell retorted, "It actually enhances the thrill, truthfully." I proceeded directly past the living room toward our main bedroom, secured the entrance, opened his section of the wardrobe, began removing garments from their hangers, and stuffing them into garbage receptacles. The large black, durable ones. I collected his footwear, his athletic attire, all his ridiculous graphic t-shirts he considers vintage, but simply make him appear as if he procures his clothing from a middle school outlet. I could still perceive their laughter emanating from the outer area. I managed to fill 4 rubbish bags before I detected approaching footsteps. Maxwell opened the bedroom door, inquiring, "Darling, when did you make it back?" and then observed me standing there with refuse bags brimming with his belongings. He asked, "What exactly are you engaged in?" And I simply fixed my gaze upon him. He was holding a beverage. There was a pizza stain evident on his shirt. This was the individual I had chosen to marry, the man I have been supporting both financially and emotionally while he frivolously consorts with my best friend and ridicules me to his associates. I stated, "I came home intending to take you by surprise for your birthday. I had your preferred cake and ornamental items in my vehicle. Instead, I had the privilege of overhearing you inform your friends how you've been meeting Lisa behind my back for 2 years and only persist in staying with me because my father settles your expenditures." His facial coloration drained instantly, becoming pallid like a vampire. He literally staggered backward 1 pace and pleaded, "Darling, wait. I can provide an explanation, that wasn't," and I interjected, "refrain from referring to me as darling ever again. I possess the entire occurrence on video." That was the juncture where he altered his strategy, beginning to claim it was merely male banter, locker room discourse. He was embellishing the truth to appear impressive in the presence of his friends. I questioned, "So you were not kissing Lisa at our wedding reception?" He replied, "That was inconsequential. Just a drunken misjudgment 3 years ago. That's the extent of it." Consequently, I retrieved my phone and played back the video clip. Him asserting he's been meeting her for 2 years. Him declaring I am unsuspecting. Him stating my father pays our mortgage as if it were a subject of amusement. He attempted to snatch my phone, and I pulled it back so forcefully that I nearly dropped it. I informed him that if he made contact with me or my phone, I would immediately summon law enforcement and have him forcibly removed. He retreated, but then initiated this lengthy discourse about how matrimony is challenging and he committed errors, but we are capable of resolving this situation. What about Nora? What about our nuclear unit? He professes affection for me and we can rectify this. I bluntly asked him the total number of times he had been intimate with Lisa over the preceding 2 years. He refused to respond. He simply kept asserting it was irrelevant and we should concentrate on moving forward. I inquired about the locations of their meetings. He stated that was not important. I asked if it transpired within our residence when I was at my employment, and he replied, "No, never here. I would never treat you with such profound lack of respect in that manner." As if that represents his established boundary for disrespect. His friends were still located in the living room. I could perceive that they were suspiciously quiet now, which unequivocally indicates they must have overheard our confrontation. Maxwell persisted in attempting to touch my arm, and I continued to step away. Eventually he proposed, "Can we at least discuss this confidentially without everyone present?" And I responded, "Your friends are welcome to depart, but you are not remaining in this house tonight." He actually began to chuckle, saying, "This is my dwelling too and you cannot simply expel me." I reminded him, "My father provides the funds for the mortgage, which signifies my father is a signatory on the occupancy agreement, and I am making a call to him right now to inform him that his son-in-law has been perpetrating deception by accepting mortgage money under false premises while betraying his daughter." That silenced him very rapidly. I bypassed him and returned to the living room, where Anthony, Simon, and the other men were suddenly deeply engrossed in their phones. I instructed them all to vacate my residence. They dispersed like vermin, merely grabbing their possessions and hastily departing. Anthony attempted to address Maxwell on his way out, and I sharply commanded him to hold his comments. Once they were gone, Maxwell resumed his entire, "We must deliberate this judiciously" address, and I interrupted him. I stated he had 2 alternatives. Option 1 is he gathers a selection of his belongings and departs this evening, and we manage this matter through legal representatives. Option 2 is I contact my father immediately and call Lisa's fiancé Beau straight away, because yes, she is betrothed to someone else, and I publish the video on Facebook, explicitly tagging every single individual we know. His eyes enlarged significantly when I referred to Beau. He pleaded, "You cannot carry out that threat." And I replied, "Observe me." I already had my phone activated and was accessing Facebook. That was the moment he transitioned to pleading. full-fledged begging, asserting he will undertake any measure. He would sever all contact with Lisa entirely. He would attend therapy. He would demonstrate his capacity for transformation. He knelt down in our living room and grasped my hands. I forcefully wrenched them away. I informed him I required him to be out of this house within 1 hour. To pack only what he requires for the subsequent few days because he will not be readmitted. He could seek accommodation with Anthony or Simon or literally any other person, but not here. Not in my vicinity and certainly not near Nora. He persisted in attempting to negotiate, claiming he had no alternative destination, inquiring if he could, at the very least, rest on the sofa, promising he would not impose upon me. I reiterated 1 hour and returned to the bedroom to continue gathering his effects. He followed me, standing in the doorway, beseeching, "Please, just allow me to provide a complete explanation." And I spun around and screamed at him that there is no rationale that renders this acceptable. That I am unconcerned with why he did it, or how it began, or what his excuse entails. That he dedicated 2 years to lying directly to my face, sleeping beside me each night, acting out the happy family role with our daughter, consuming meals I prepared, residing in a house that my father subsidizes, all while engaging in relations with my best friend, whom I placed my trust in. He attempted to claim Lisa seduced him, that she made the first move, and he was vulnerable. I literally expressed laughter in his face, informing him he is a fully mature adult who made deliberate choices, and he must accept accountability for those choices like an adult instead of placing the blame on everyone else. Then my phone began to ring. Maxwell's mother, Juliana. I permitted the call to proceed to voicemail. She immediately attempted to contact me again. I answered and she inquired, "Maxwell just telephoned me, quite distressed, claiming you are forcing him to leave over a misunderstanding, and you refuse to listen to sound judgment." I stated, "There is no misinterpretation, Juliana. Your son has been engaging in infidelity with my best friend for 2 years, and I possess video documentation of him bragging about it to his associates." She fell silent. Then she commented, "All men experience their moments, dear. Do not abandon your marriage over casual male conversation." I abruptly terminated the call on her. She sent me 3 subsequent text messages, and I blocked her contact information. Maxwell was still standing there and suggested, "You see, even my mother believes you are overreacting," and I completely lost control. I informed him that his mother raised a man who perceives infidelity as harmless chatter and deception as permissible, and exploiting his wife's family for financial gain while treating her with contempt as entirely acceptable. That his mother is the final person entitled to an opinion regarding our marriage. I handed him the refuse bags I had already filled and instructed him to collect the remaining items himself. He transported them to his vehicle while I seated myself on the bed, concentrating on breathing once more because the surge of adrenaline was causing me to shake uncontrollably. When he re-entered for more possessions, I inquired if our entire conjugal period was a fabrication. If he ever genuinely loved me, or if I was merely convenient. He solemnly swore he loves me, and this situation with Lisa simply occurred and escalated beyond control. I asked when he last encountered her. He declined to provide an answer. I stated if it was a recent meeting, he had better disclose the information immediately. And he finally confessed they had met for lunch on Tuesday, 2 days prior. He spent time with Lisa during his lunchtime while I was at work, and then returned home, consumed the dinner I prepared, and spent time with Nora before bedtime, and remained completely silent about it. I informed him, "I desire a dissolution of our marriage." He started weeping. Genuine tears streamed down his face, pleading, "Please do not execute this decision. Consider Nora. We are capable of resolving this." I asserted, "Nora merits a mother who possesses sufficient self-respect not to remain with a faithless deceiver and a father who comprehends that actions bear consequences." He packed 3 additional bags. I followed his movements around the house to ensure he did not take anything that was not his. He attempted to take the tablet device and I specified, "That belongs to Nora for her electronic games and he cannot have it." He protested and I instructed, "Address that concern with your legal counsel." Directly before his departure, he turned around in the doorway and declared, "You are making a monumental error. You will feel remorse for this. We function well together." And I retorted, "We were never a functional unit. I was merely too engaged in managing every aspect to recognize you were a dishonest philanderer." He attempted one final time to embrace me. I stepped backward. He finally departed. I secured the entrance behind him. Every lock, the deadbolt, and the chain. Then I proceeded to secure every window. Verified it twice. I then settled down on the floor in my kitchen and simply sat there, gazing at that absurd chocolate cake I had prepared for his birthday. 3 hours dedicated to baking and ornamentation with those small decorative sugar paste elements he prefers. I took hold of a fork and consumed the cake directly from the serving platter on my kitchen floor at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday night. My phone has been receiving an influx of notifications. Maxwell calling and messaging. His mother messaging. His brother Anthony messaging, suggesting I am acting too severely. My sister calling to inquire about my well-being. My father calling after Alicia informed him of the incident. I have not yet contacted Lisa's fiancé. I am aware I should do so. I know he deserves to be informed, but I also cannot manage one more complication tonight. I finally sent a text message to Alicia and asked her to collect Nora from our parents' residence tomorrow morning and transport her to preschool as usual. I do not wish for Nora to observe me in this current state. My parents can continue to look after her until the conclusion of the weekend while I determine the subsequent course of action. Acknowledgement to whoever is reading this and pondering, why didn't you just fling the cake at him? Honestly, I share the sentiment. But that cake was too aesthetically pleasing to squander on his countenance. I am uncertain of my path. I am unsure if I handled this appropriately. All I know is I am currently situated here at practically midnight on what was intended to be his birthday celebration. And instead, I am searching online for divorce legal counsel, eating cake in solitude, and attempting to devise a way to communicate to my 4-year-old daughter that her father will no longer. Update 1. I barely managed to sleep on Thursday night. I repeatedly checked my mobile device every 20 minutes because Maxwell was transmitting messages incessantly. Content included phrases such as, "We must hold a discussion," "Please refrain from taking this action," and "I love you and this is resolvable." Then, around 2 a.m., he shifted his approach to, "I am owed an opportunity to articulate my perspective thoroughly." I did not provide a response to any of it. I simply lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling in my dwelling, which my father finances, while this individual who has been exploiting me believes he merits anything. Around 6 a.m., I finally drifted into a brief slumber. Then, at 7:15 a.m., I heard aggressive pounding on my main entrance. Forceful, persistent striking. I seized my phone and proceeded to the living room, and there was Maxwell outside, wearing the identical garments from the previous day, violently striking the door, shouting loudly, "Open up! We need to converse." My neighbor, Lillian, residing directly across the street, was retrieving her daily newspaper and was visibly observing. Another neighbor was exercising his dog and paused to watch. Maxwell detected my presence through the window and began to yell more intensely about how I could not simply shut him out and that we are married and he possesses entitlements. I opened the door but kept the security chain engaged and informed him he must depart immediately or I would notify the police. He insisted, "I merely wish to engage in a mature conversation." And I rebutted, "Adults do not betray their wives for 2 years and then appear screaming on their doorstep at 7 a.m. when the entire vicinity can hear." He attempted to forcefully insert his foot into the narrow gap of the door. Tried to wedge his foot. I slammed the door shut onto his foot, and he emitted a sharp cry and recoiled, and I was screaming at him that he is not entitled to intimidate me, and if he did not vacate the premises within 60 seconds, I would be calling emergency services. Lillian across the street actually took out her mobile device at that juncture, appearing ready to place a call herself. Maxwell noticed her and retreated to his car, but rolled down the window, yelling about how I am being unreasonable and dismantling our family. I retreated inside, shaking, not from apprehension but from intense fury. The sheer nerve of this man to appear and cause a commotion following everything he had done. I called my father, recounting the events. My father, who is the most composed person alive, was visibly enraged. He announced he was arriving immediately and that we would be replacing the locks today, and Maxwell would not be receiving a key. He then added he would also be contacting the mortgage provider to ensure Maxwell's name is removed from all documentation since he has been the one making the payments. My father arrived an hour later accompanied by my mother and Alicia. My mother brought morning sustenance sandwiches from a deli we favor. I actually began to weep when I saw her because I had been maintaining my composure all morning, but seeing my mother caused me to emotionally collapse. We took seats in my kitchen and I displayed the complete video to them. My mother observed the entirety of it, her hand covering her mouth, and when it concluded she stated, "That young man is no longer welcomed within this family." My father was so infuriated that his hands were visibly trembling. He repeatedly stated, "I placed my trust in him. I provided him with assistance. I subsidized his existence while he dishonored my daughter." Alicia expressed a desire to drive to wherever Maxwell was lodging and puncture his car tires. My mother had to calm her down. Then my phone chimed. Lisa. Lisa was attempting to contact me. Everyone fell silent. I simply gazed at the display and Alicia urged, "Do not answer that." And I declared, "Oh, I am absolutely answering." And I activated the speaker function. Lisa began, "Hello, I realize this is awkward, but is it possible for us to meet somewhere to engage in a dialogue?" And I inquired, "To discuss precisely what?" Lisa grew quiet and then continued, "Maxwell telephoned me last night in tears claiming you forced him out, and I simply want to present my side of the story." I laughed, actually erupted in laughter. I informed her there is no version of events that makes sleeping with your best friend's husband acceptable. She initiated this comprehensive explanation about how it merely transpired, and neither of them intended for it to progress this extensively, and they attempted to cease their actions on numerous occasions, but genuine emotions were involved. Genuine emotions. She said, real feelings, as if that serves as a justification. I asked her how she could sit at my kitchen table every weekend for brunch and hold my daughter and inquire about my marital status while actively sabotaging it. She stated, "It is not that uncomplicated and the situation between myself and Beau has not been favorable, and Maxwell comprehended me in a way Beau does not." My mother intervened and took the phone from me at that point and expressed her indignation. She informed Lisa she is a disgrace and a terrible friend, and she must never attempt to communicate with me again or approach this family. Lisa attempted to interject, and my mother terminated the call. We were all simply sitting there in a state of shock. Then Alicia questioned, "So, are we informing Beau?" And I replied, "Yes, absolutely. He is entitled to the truth. But here is the complication. I do not possess Beau's contact number. Lisa and I were friends, but I only ever saw Beau at group social events, and I do not follow him on social media because we are not intimately acquainted in that manner. Alicia, however, located him on Instagram, and his profile is accessible to the public, so she transmitted a direct message to him from her account, stating, 'This concerns Lisa and Maxwell. Please call me. It is of an urgent nature.' He returned her call in approximately 10 minutes. Alicia answered and explained her identity. She then transferred the phone to me. And I had to convey to this man, whom I barely know, that his fiancée has been engaging in an affair with my husband for 2 years. The silence on the other end was extremely prolonged. Then he inquired, 'Are you certain?' And I affirmed, 'I possess video documentation of Maxwell boasting about it to his friends.' He asked if I could forward the material to him. I did so via Alicia's Instagram direct message feature. Beau called back 5 minutes later and he was weeping, genuinely shedding tears. He mentioned he and Lisa are scheduled to marry in 4 months, and he just made a substantial prepayment on their venue the previous week. He repeatedly questioned if I knew the duration and locations of their meetings, and all these specific details to which I lacked the answers. I conveyed, 'I am incredibly sorry and I only recently discovered this myself.' And he replied, 'This is not your fault. Thank you for disclosing this.' Then he ended the call. My mother insisted we all sit down and consume the breakfast sandwiches even though no one felt hungry. She stated, 'You require nourishment in your system because today is going to be protracted.' And she was correct. Around 11 a.m., the locksmith arrived and replaced all the locking mechanisms. While he was performing his task, Maxwell's mother, Juliana, appeared unannounced. Just materialized at my residence. My father answered the door and informed her she must leave. She forcibly moved past him into my entryway, asserting, 'I need to converse with my daughter-in-law.' I emerged from the kitchen and she was standing there, her handbag clutched tightly to her chest, presenting a proper and concerned appearance. She began, 'My dear, I am aware you are distressed, but you are not thinking rationally.' She claimed, 'Maxwell made an error, but he is a decent person and a competent father, and I must extend forgiveness to him for Nora's benefit.' I informed her Maxwell devoted 2 years to deceiving everyone, including his own daughter, while engaging in relations with my best friend and utilizing my father's funds. That is not a simple misstep. That is a decision he made repeatedly. She contended, marriage is founded on clemency and navigating difficult periods. Every couple experiences challenging phases. I inquired if she would remain with her husband if he betrayed her for 2 years, and she adopted an irritated demeanor, claiming, 'That is a distinct matter and not the central issue.' My mother then emerged and informed Juliana she must vacate my house instantly. They actually engaged in an argument right there in my entryway. Juliana asserting my mother raised me to surrender too easily on my marriage. And my mother stating she raised me to possess self-respect and not tolerate being treated as rubbish. The locksmith was simply standing there with his power tool, looking extremely uncomfortable. My father finally interceded between them and physically accompanied Juliana to the exit. She turned around and predicted, 'You are going to regret this when Nora matures without her father.' And I completely lost control. I screamed at her that Maxwell is capable of fulfilling his paternal role for Nora without living here and lying to me, and that perhaps if she had nurtured him more effectively, he would understand how to be a respectable human being. She left. My father secured the new lock behind her. I dedicated the remainder of Friday morning to contacting legal professionals specializing in divorce. I located one who can accommodate a meeting on Monday morning. My father is covering the expenses because I cannot afford a divorce lawyer on my current salary, and Maxwell is certainly not going to finance his own divorce proceedings. Around 2 p.m. I had to go and retrieve Nora from my parents' house, where Alicia had dropped her off following preschool. I was dreading the moment because how does one communicate to one's 4-year-old that everything is undergoing change? But Nora was in a positive disposition, playing with her playthings, and she inquired about her father's whereabouts, and I simply said, 'Daddy is staying somewhere else for a brief period.' She asked for the reason, and I explained, 'Mommy and Daddy require some space right now, but we both hold immense love for her.' She appeared content with that and returned to her play. Children are remarkably adaptable, but I also understand this is bound to become more challenging. I brought her home and prepared her preferred pasta dish for dinner, and we watched Encanto for the millionth viewing. She drifted off to sleep on the sofa beside me, and I simply sat there, observing her small face, contemplating how I am undertaking this for her sake too. So she matures witnessing that her mother does not consent to being treated poorly. So she assimilates what she should and should not tolerate in personal relationships. My phone would not cease its activity. Maxwell sending messages requesting to see Nora. His mother messaging claiming I am behaving cruelly. Anthony messaging, stating Maxwell is experiencing significant difficulty, and perhaps I should hear his side. I responded to exactly one text message, and it was addressed to Anthony. I informed him his friend Maxwell boasted to him and everyone else about cheating on me, so he can cope with the repercussions. And if Anthony perceives an issue with that, he can struggle right alongside him. Then Saturday morning I awoke to 17 text communications from Maxwell. Extensive paragraphs about how profoundly sorry he is and how he will undertake any measure, and how I am the absolute love of his life, and Lisa held no significance compared to me. I finally responded, informing him he must communicate exclusively through my lawyer henceforth, and any contact must solely pertain to Nora. He immediately attempted to call me and I did not answer. He called 6 more times. I applied a block to his contact number. He began placing calls from various alternative numbers, unfamiliar numbers I did not recognize. I would answer, assuming it was the lawyer's office or something of significant importance, and it would be Maxwell pleading with me to speak with him. I blocked 4 distinct numbers on Saturday alone. Then, Saturday evening, Alicia transmitted a screen capture to me. Lisa had published an extensive post on Facebook about how she is undergoing a challenging period and requesting privacy, and stating that individuals make errors, and true friends offer unwavering support. The comments, however, showed that people were perplexed, inquiring about the events, and a few mutual acquaintances were commenting messages of encouragement. Then Beau commented with a single line. He declared, "Lisa, you do not possess the right to assume the role of the injured party when you are the one who shattered our relationship and multiple families." The situation quickly gained momentum after that. People were demanding to know what was transpiring. Someone commented, inquiring if Lisa had been unfaithful, and Beau responded affirmatively, stating it was with her best friend's husband while her best friend was expecting a child and caring for their newborn. I did not request that he perform that action. I was not even present on Facebook at that time because I had logged out to avoid viewing anything. But Alicia sent me screenshots and apparently everyone we know saw it, and people began commenting on Maxwell's Facebook as well, asking if the claims were accurate. Maxwell completely deactivated his Facebook presence by Saturday night. Lisa restricted access to hers. A shout out to the commenter on my original posting who remarked that the refuse was disposing of itself, because that is precise. My phone commenced ringing with numbers I did not recognize. When I finally answered one, it was my aunt inquiring if the Facebook content was factual. I confirmed it was, and she stated the entire extended family is appalled and offers their complete backing to me. Then my cousin called, then another aunt, then my father's brother, everyone calling to check on my well-being and declare their solidarity with me, which is appreciated but also mentally taxing because I had to explain the circumstances 17 times. Sunday morning, Maxwell made an appearance at my house again, this time at 9 a.m., and pressed the doorbell repeatedly. I inspected through the viewing port, and he was standing there holding floral arrangements, specifically a bunch of roses. I did not open the door. He started yelling through the door about how he knows I am inside and we must engage in a face-to-face discussion. Nora was still in a state of sleep, thankfully, so she did not hear this. I sent him a text communication from my laptop using iMessage since I had blocked his number on my phone and informed him he needed to leave instantly or I would contact the authorities for harassing behavior. He texted back questioning, "Harassment? Seriously, darling? I am your spouse attempting to preserve our marriage." I contacted my father. He drove over and confronted Maxwell in the driveway. I observed from the window as my father got directly in Maxwell's personal space and declared, "If he presents himself at this house one more time without express permission, he will personally file for a protective order." Maxwell attempted to argue, and my father stated he was not participating in a debate. And Maxwell should feel fortunate he is not receiving a physical reprimand for what he inflicted upon his daughter. Maxwell placed the flowers on my doorstep and drove away. I discarded the flowers into the waste receptacle without even bringing them inside. Alicia came over Sunday afternoon, and we prepared meals in advance for the forthcoming week while Nora was engaged in play in the backyard. Alicia continuously inquired if I was managing acceptably, and honestly, I am uncertain. For instance, on the one hand, I am overwhelmed with anger, pain, and the sense of betrayal. On the other hand, I must maintain functionality, attend to Nora's needs, and return to work tomorrow and act normally. She suggested I take a period of leave from my job, but I am not financially able to. I require my employment. I need my regular compensation. I need financial stability for Nora. Sunday evening, I finally took the time to compile a roster of everything I need to address. Divorce lawyer on Monday. Determine an arrangement for the custody of Nora. Communicate with the Human Resources Department regarding updating my emergency contact information and beneficiary designations. Cancel the jointly held credit card. Separate bank accounts. Inform Nora's preschool that Maxwell is not authorized to collect her without my consent. The list is incredibly comprehensive and daunting, and I simply wish to break down into tears upon viewing it. However, I am also done shedding tears over Maxwell. Then Sunday night, around 10 p.m. after I put Nora to bed, I received a message from a number I did not recognize. It stated, "This is Beau. Can we talk?" And honestly, I couldn't discern what there was left to discuss, but I replied, "All right." And he inquired if he could place a voice call to me. And I confirmed, yes. A second follow-up is forthcoming because that telephone conversation with Bo brought to light information I definitely was not anticipating, and now there is an entirely new complex situation to manage. Update 2. So that phone call with Bo on Sunday night absolutely dismantled me, and I am still endeavoring to process the full extent of the information. He called around 10:30 p.m. and commenced by apologizing for reaching out so late, but he could not stop contemplating everything and felt the need to converse with someone who comprehends the emotional experience. I assured him I understood and inquired how he was holding up. He shared that he confronted Lisa on Friday night after I forwarded the video to him. She initially denied everything. She asserted Maxwell was fabricating the narrative and exaggerating to impress his friends. But Bo continued to pressure her, and she finally emotionally collapsed and confessed they had been seeing one another, but insisted it was not serious and only transpired a few times. I asked him if he accepted that statement, and he replied, no, because he then examined her mobile device. Lisa had apparently left it on their kitchen counter when she went to shower, and he simply picked it up and scrutinized everything. Her password is his birthday, so it was not even a challenge. He uncovered months of communications between her and Maxwell on Instagram direct messages. They have an entire documented thread extending back almost 2 years, precisely as I had suspected. But here is the detail that instilled a feeling of nausea in me. They were not solely meeting for casual encounters. They were discussing the prospect of being together permanently, about leaving us and commencing a new life together. Bo read me a portion of the messages and I had to activate the speakerphone because my hands were shaking relentlessly. Maxwell expressing to Lisa that he thinks of her incessantly and wishes he could awaken alongside her every morning. Lisa stating she feels more like her true self with Maxwell than she ever has with Bo, them deliberating how they would manage the custody of Nora and what their shared existence would resemble. They were actively formulating a future. While I was preparing Maxwell's breakfast and washing his clothing and raising our daughter, he was texting another woman about abandoning me. Bo mentioned there were messages dating back to when I was pregnant with Nora. Lisa communicating to Maxwell that she was envious watching him perform the happy family role. Maxwell stating he wished it was Lisa he was expecting a child with instead. My visual perception literally blurred when Bo conveyed that to me. Then Bo shared something that made the entire situation substantially worse. He asked me if I was aware of the Instagram account Maxwell created under a fictitious identity merely to exchange messages with Lisa without anyone noticing. I had no comprehension of what he was referring to, and Bo sent me screen captures via Instagram DM. Maxwell established an entirely false account utilizing photographs of a random male as the profile image and a generic designation such as James Peterson or something similar. That is how they conducted the majority of their communication, so if anyone inspected their phones it would not appear questionable. Bo only discovered it because Lisa had it stored in her close friends list.